Well, I don't even know how long this would-be review will be, but we have here 120 Days of Sodom by the Marquis de Sade, and we have a butt on a inverted cross. And let me tell you, it's kind of difficult to read this book in public because, oh boy, the cover ain't nice. Okay. And of course, what we have here is, you know, uh, the most impure tale ever written since the world began, and that's a crazy boast. That's a crazy claim, my guy. The Marquis de Sade ain't fucking around, right? He is, the prime example of somebody who is too in love with himself and who thinks that he is always right, and his tastes and his preferences are Gucci, and everybody else is a pleb. And I would have to say this: while I was reading this book, this novel, I was simultaneously doing some research on the author, and the more I researched about de Sade, I was always making the connections, and our boy Albert Fish always popped into my head while doing some research on this guy, and the similarities are just so well similar. Like if you do not know who Albert Fish was, let me tell you, he was another uh, libertine, if you would, just like our boy Marquis de Sade. They were extremely similar in a sense. Um, and just for the record, listen, these two words, libertine or libertinage and lubricious, these two words will be pretty much on every page of this goddamn novel. Apparently, back in the day, in the 1700s, being a libertine was pretty much tantamount to being a Giga Chad, allegedly, right? Being a libertine apparently was equated to being a refined person of culture, I guess. And this word, this expression is very important, very telling. Cultured, right? Because if you've been paying attention to the internet the last decade or so, maybe even longer, this word has been creeping up, has been coming out of the woodwork. Culture, we're being cultured with, if you have been paying attention, you should know that the people who have been saying that they're so-called cultured are a bunch of depraved perverts. Okay, on the internet. This is what people are who claim to be cultured, especially today. They're depraved and decadent perverts, most of them anyway, and it seems to me that even back in the 1700s, the so-called elite and the educated, who claim to be, refined and cultured, also were nasty as fuck. Let's just say it. And listen, if you do any research on the author, you will find excerpts that, oh boy, everybody was fucking tired of this guy. This guy was fucking creep. Everybody, from the peasants to the clergy to the nobility, everybody had it for this guy because this guy was misunderstood. He had his inclinations and he had his hobbies, and people were being a bunch of prudes and they were being bigoted, and they had it out for our boy Marquis de Sade because he was different. He was different, maybe autistic. But to me, if you do any real research, you will find that The Marquis de Sade, he is um, an example of what people in power actually are like. Like, this guy wasn't the only one in his, in his age, right? He was just a bit more outspoken. He was a bit more about that social life. He was basically an exhibitionist, right? He wanted to be seen and he wanted people to be disgusted by his acts, right? But if you do any research in history at all, even mainstream history, you find that the people in power, the people who have any sort of control over anything, be it nobility, royalty, the clergy, politics, business, they're all a bunch of fucking creeps. For realsies now. For realsies. But anyway, listen, this book, everybody, whether you hate it or love it, everybody's been talking about this nasty ass book and this nasty ass author. He was a revolutionary. He was the first sexual liberator. Boy. He influenced the 60s flower power generation, whatever. Everybody has something to say about our boy, Marquis de Sade. And I went in reading this book expecting, greatness. Expecting, even if it is foul and insidious and heinous, I was still expecting a certain caliber or a certain quality when it comes to, depravity. A sort of refinement, if you would. Something. Not just, I'm jerking off right now. And this is what this book really is. If you look beyond the flowery prose, basically, this book is, I'm jerking off right now. Okay? This is what this book is. And I am not impressed at all. And listen, after the first 100 pages, I was just like, oh my God, I was over it. This guy repeats himself. He does basically the same thing over and over again with a few tweaks here and there, right? This book is basically this. See, I'm just fucked up. See how nasty I am? This is what this book is. And even, a character in this book says that, the best thing about libertinage or lubriciousness is the reaction of the witnesses to your nastiness. The fact that their disgusted reactions is the cherry on top of the cake, right? So it's all about exhibitionism. Is the true sexual gratification or sexual arousal is that people think that you're a nasty ass. You're a creep. This is the peak of the fulfillment, okay? And I have to say this again, I was not impressed at all. I was not even disgusted or repulsed or revolted. I was just like, the more I read this, I was just like, and I was clicking my teeth. I was like, man, if you don't stop real quick, man. Listen, Marquis de Sade is trying too hard. He is trying too hard. Unfortunately, like, with each scene, he goes, further beyond in terms of nastiness and creepiness, and it just, to me at least, it just falls flat. And I'm just like, bro, here we go again, man. Just stop. Just stop already, dude. Now listen, this is what I think. You invite the Marquis de Sade for a nice dinner in the evening. And the moment we all sit down, this guy can't stop talking about doo-doo, feces, and buttholes. This is who the Marquis de Sade was. And I'm just like, bro, stop. Like, just stop. We're having a nice dinner. Just stop. Dude. Just stop. and he reminds me, this archetype reminds me of the culture, let's call it the anime and manga waifu degenerate uwu, who has absolutely no qualms of calling himself and herself, ironically or unironically, a degenerate. It's very similar. It's so bizarre that it seems to me that the anime and manga community, a part of it, has inherited the Marquis de Sade archetype of creepiness, where today people have absolutely no qualms about proclaiming to the world that they are a bunch of perverts and creeps, and they love all of this nasty bullshit. It's so strange, polarizing, right? But back to the book. Basically, the plot. We have our four friends who are, let's call them elites. They are of the ruling class, okay, and they're wealthy, which, of course, yet again, the Marquis de Sade is telling us in a subtle but not so subtle ways that the people in power generally have the means by which they commit all of these egregious acts. Okay, if you study, the ruling class throughout history, you will find endless evidence that they do this shit on the daily 24/7. They've been doing this since day one, and the Marquis de Sade, not so subtly, is telling us, listen, of course, these are the people who have the time and the money and the authority to do all of this nasty shit to innocent people, okay? But back to the plot. So these four elites, they're basically a bunch of creeps, they're a bunch of perverts, degenerates, and they pay off, a bunch of, let's call them criminals. And these criminals are paid to go around France and just basically kidnap people, right? These criminals are paid by the elites to go around France in the 1700s and basically kidnap people, mainly children, and bring them back to a secluded hideout so that these four elites can do perverted things to these children. Boy, and let me tell you, if you've done any research on the elites, this plot should ring some bells, and you should see the red flags immediately, because let me tell you, fiction is inspired by reality, not the other way around, okay? There's a lot of truth in this that people are missing. So all of these criminals that have been paid off, they kidnap kids and they bring them back to these four elites. And they all fuck off to this hideout, to this castle. It's extremely remote, reclusive, and they destroy the bridge so nobody can come and help these poor people. And immediately, the debauchery ensues. And let me tell you, it's just after you get acquainted and accustomed to, let's just say, Marquis de Sade's extremely personal way of describing certain persuasions, you get bored extremely early, okay? And let me tell you, I'll say this. This guy's sinister obsession with doo-doo feces is overwhelming. It's jaw-dropping. It's just, he takes it to such a scientific level, such a passionate level that I'm just stunned. Like, bro, listen, doo-doo feces are not that interesting, dude. Calm down, bro. It's like you never seen doo-doo feces in your life. But in the book, these elites take turns examining the privies to make sure that their victims that they have kidnapped don't relieve themselves until they give them the word to do so. Okay, and it's so meticulous. Like, he just writes whose turn is it, how they proceed, what the procedure is. If they have relieved themselves somehow, they're gonna get punished. And it's just this sadomasochistic bullshit that I don't really understand, because it revolves around doo-doo feces. Let that sink in. Listen, I understand fetishes, I understand kinks, I understand that everybody has their fetishes. Subjective, personalized. Everybody has their kinks. And I'm not here to judge any of that, but you're telling me that you're getting sexual arousal from doo-doo feces. Let me tell you, I'm gonna smack you. Like, this is lame. This is pathetic, bro. Like, what? Huh? Like, hey, yo, the fuck? I don't understand this. Right? Listen, I'm extremely tolerant of one's sexual persuasions. But this is just fucking silly. Goofy as fuck, cringe. What are you talking about, bro? This is even more pathetic than somebody being in love with a waifu body pillow. At least the waifu body pillow, it has a picture of a waifu. Like, this guy is in love with doo-doo feces. And he's even more in love with, he gains the satisfaction by bullying other people so that they do not relieve themselves. So, because they do not relieve themselves, they suffer cramps and pain, and it's uncomfortable. And I guess for these degenerates of the lowest of the low, this is somehow sexy. I don't understand. How is this revolutionary? Let me tell you, for the early 1700s or the middle 1700s, what this guy wrote about, this guy was extremely fixed. He had a mission in life, Marquis de Sade. He was set on a goal. He was on that grind set, and his grind set revolved around doo-doo feces. Let that sink in. Okay? But overall, the plot. Okay, so they are in this castle in the middle of nowhere. Nobody can come and save anybody. Which again is another nod to how the elites operate. If you didn't know, okay, this is how the elites operate. But they are in this castle, and the debauchery ensues. And they have brought the criminals that have abducted all of these kids. Excuse me, and this is how the plot progresses, okay? And you will see how monotonous and banal and repetitive it is. The criminals take turns, or I should say the kidnappers take turns telling their stories. So one is a prostitute, the other is a murderer, the other is a poisoner, the other one is a pervert. And we start with the prostitute. And the prostitute tells her story over the course of a couple of chapters. And she starts with, well, I was 5 years old and I got molested by priests. And then, I left the priesthood, the church, and I went to this brothel. And that's how I became a prostitute at the tender age of 5 years old. And afterwards, she keeps giving examples or episodes of what happened when she was a prostitute in training, right? And this is how the plot progresses. This is the narrative here. So this prostitute, she tells how she met a whole lot of creeps, a whole lot of perverts, and how she had to satisfy all of them because all of them had their unique quirks when it comes to, beating off. Okay? So, for example, she talks about how, there was this one guy who wanted one thing and one thing only. And this guy wanted to suck her saliva out of her mouth. Okay? And she did that. And the customer was satisfied. Another happy customer. And there was another customer who really liked snot. And therefore, she got sick, and this guy sucked all of her snot, and he was a happy customer. And let me tell you, another customer, he was really into farts. Like, really into farts. And let me tell you, the prostitute, she ate a lot of beans, and let me tell you, she farted a lot. And the customer was really satisfied. And while I'm reading this, I'm just like, oh my God. This guy, he just can't stop. He just can't stop. Listen, this book is akin to listening to a middle-aged man talking about his sexual conquests. If you have ever been in the presence of a middle-aged man, he will have to tell you just what a lady killer he was. And he will tell you every episode when he clapped cheeks. And let me tell you, he was an Adonis. He was a Don Juan in the bedsheets. And this is what it feels like while reading this book. It's cringe. It's absolute cringe. Right? Just like listening to a middle-aged man trying to convince me that he was a sexual god. Right? And of course, it keeps on getting worse. It escalates, and the excess reaches an acme that is, you think that it is just so foul, but actually it's just pathetic. It's just pathetic. It's lame. It's pathetic. There's nothing more pathetic than this, right? And there's somebody, of course, there has to be somebody that is into doo-doo feces. And of course, the prostitute will, supply the service, and we will have another satisfied customers. And another customer of this brothel really likes the nasty crud between, between the fingers of the foot. And so our prostitute will not wash her feet for months. And then the customer will come and he will do his thing and he will be satisfied. And another customer, let me tell you, he's really into armpits, stinky armpits. And our friendly neighborhood prostitute will supply this service. And we will have another satisfied customer. And this goes on and on and on for 250 pages of absolute detail, meticulous, precise, autistic, leaving no detail, explaining and describing every foul thing, every crud that the body produces, and how these fuckheads, they're just in love with fucking doo-doo feces. Right? And I guess, of course, I'm not closed-minded. I do realize that some people out there might love this book. This book is their Bible, and that's fine. Whatever, bro. Do you, bro. Whatever, sure, whatever, bro. But to me, it's startling. It's puzzling. It's flabbergasting. It's mortifying that this can maintain and keep the attention of a reader. Because after a while, I'm just like, yep. He's into doo-doo feces. What a surprise. What a cliffhanger. What a revelation, huh? Oh my God, he's into doo-doo feces as well? Like, no. There is no surprise. What are we talking about here, bro? What are we talking about here? Right? After a while, you can clearly see that this is not just a sexual fetish or a sadomasochistic kink. This is neuroticism. This is a neurotic behavior. This is even beyond neurotic. I don't even know the word, or if there is a word to describe what this is, this is, because this is a hyper fixation on just I mean, really, bro, you're into dirty toes? Like, get out of here. Get out of here, you know? Just get out of here, that, bro. Right? And listen, while I was reading all of this nasty ass shit, that's boring, by the way. While I was reading this nasty ass shit, I kept imagining the Marquis de Sade writing this in a dark dungeon, holding a quail in one hand and writing, and just jerking off with the other hand. This to me is who this guy was. Period. His defining characteristic. He just jerked off. Period. And this is another thing that I don't know if a lot of readers or scholars, because apparently even scholars have analyzed this glorious art form, right? But this is what I've noticed. Despite this book being just nasty as fuck and just degeneracy and creepiness and perverse beyond, you know, in terms of foulness, this is not sexy. This is just ew. This is the reaction that this book should provoke. It's ew. Okay. But this is what I've noticed. Even though this author is just trying his hardest to tell you that he is the most nasty ass motherfucker around, right? A lot of the situations in this book, they're not so much revolving around sex or intercourse or even penetration, even though, yes, it does happen quite often. It's not the highlight. It's not the peak. It seems to me, and I've noticed this, and you tell me if you've noticed this, but it seems to me that the peak gratification or the peak stimulus that this sexual gratification, sexual arousal revolves around is masturbation. Okay? Because a lot of these characters prefer masturbation to actual, to actual sex. It's the people that go to the brothel, they're into stinky armpits and they're into farts, but they also like to be jerked off a lot. There's the penetration aspect. It's on a lower pedestal, I have noticed. The top tier, God tier thing in this book is actually masturbation. Penetration and the other things are secondary. It's masturbation that's key here, and I find that so peculiar. It's interesting why masturbation should be number one, right? And I love the fact that in this translation, for masturbation or jerking off, they use the word frig. So everybody's just like, I got frigged, she got frigged, he frigged me, she frigged me, we're all frigging, frig me, frig you, let's just frig all day long. And I'm just like, bro, just use jerk off. Actually the word jerk off is used like a couple of times, but frig is absolutely the word here. Everybody gets frigged. Everybody likes to get frigged. Okay? And listen, while I was reading this and getting really bored and annoyed at the bland repetition, I imagined, and this is what I do because I just love to imagine things because I'm a storyteller myself, and I imagined two options for the ending. Okay, I imagine, number one, that these libertines, okay, these sick-ass fucks, I imagine that, one, they would be so bored of all of this bacchanalia, that they would be so bored of this lasciviousness, that they would be bored of orgies, and they would be bored of just busting nuts, and they would be bored of doo-doo feces eventually. That they would just lose their minds because they got all the food, they got the drinks, they do all of the nastiest, creepiest things possible. You know, I'm surprised. I don't think that they do drugs, which is strange, right? And I imagine that they would be so bored of all of this by the end that they would lose their minds and go crazy and maybe kill all of these people and then maybe kill themselves or each other in a battle royale and maybe engage in a little bit of cannibalism as well, right? And number two, I thought that they would keep on escalating everything, that they would just go crazy because, if you reach certain peaks that are just so stimulating, you go crazy. So I thought that they would just overstimulate themselves, that they would go crazy, and this is how everything would be ruined, that they would just butcher everybody, and they would set the castle on fire, and they would eat each other, and it would be like the end of the world in miniature, right? But this is not how it actually ends. It actually ends with, these four degenerates, these elites, actually deciding, to kill most of their victims and torture them and subject them to all sorts of, I don't know if I can even say this word, grape. They eat a lot of grapes, right? And it's just like, right, by the end, you're just like, bro, just what is this? Like, and again, this guy was just such a exhibitionist that he got he got exiled, he got imprisoned time and time again. He was even set to be executed, and he fled. And when he was incarcerated for long periods of time, this is what he was doing. He was writing this cringe and other books, and he was jerking off with the other hand. And I'm just like, of course he's writing about doo-doo feces. Of course he is. And of course, listen, I'm not trying to say that, listen, there's some cruel, crude, savage, sadomasochistic dark shit that's being written about here. Of course there is. And I would say the absolute creepy factor regarding this Marquis de Sade is his absolute meticulous planning and his meticulous, precise detailing of every torture scene and every, how are we going to make this even more disgusting and nasty and painful for the victims? And he just, like an architect, he just, like he's playing chess. He sees everything and he details everything. And I'm just like, bro, just stop. Just stop. Okay, enough with the doo-doo feces, bro. Listen. You have seen that in the beginning I have made this comparison to Albert Fish, the notorious, absolutely notorious and sinister serial killer, and with the Marquis de Sade, and they're so similar. And I've kept wondering about this, what is it that initiated this kind of preference? Let's call it a preference in these two people. Because, of course, we can now claim that it's both nature and nurture to a certain extent. But to this extremity, to this extreme in both cases, what would initiate or provoke this level of utter absolute nastiness in these two people, Marquis de Sade and Albert Fish, right? I mean, when you study these two guys, and I have done extensive research on people like Albert Fish and what he was into. And let me tell you, he was another guy that was way too much into doo-doo feces. He called it peanut butter. Okay, peanut butter. And I guess this is the only true fascination for me, is to understand the mind of humans. What could possibly provoke something like this? Such a tendency, such a persuasion, such a leaning, such an inclination, right? Because there are fetishes, and then there are kinks of every variety and every degree. And then there's this shit. And then there's the Marquis de Sade and Albert Fish, and you're like, hey, yo, huh? Like, you understand? This isn't normal. This isn't normal. Okay? By any extent. By any extent. And I'm extremely tolerant when it comes to one's sexual fetishes. Okay? Very tolerant. But this is another beast. In its entirety. Like, I don't understand something like this. What would lead to somebody being like this? Okay? What would lead to somebody being like this? Because the Marquis de Sade, even though he lived in the early or mid 1700s, like, he came from a pretty decent background, all things considering. He had wealth, he had prestige, he had land, his family had reputation. He was basically well off. A good education, the freedom and the free time to do whatever, and he chose to do what he did. Right? And the question is, why? To this extent, to this extreme, to this excel, to this excess. Right? And the same thing you can ask about Albert Fish and his nasty ass. What would lead a person to be this way? And of course, you have to see things from all angles, and you have to understand the age that these people lived in, that perhaps their parents and their guardians and their relatives and their neighbors, they maybe weren't aware of it. They didn't see the red flags. They didn't care about it. They ignored it. They didn't know anything about this. They were just ignorant or naive. I don't know what it is. Could it be genetics? Could it be the best? Could it be that these two people were created by a perfect combination of fucked up genetics? Or maybe something happened in their early lives that set off something in their not yet fully developed brains. Because if you look at Albert Fish, what happened to him in his childhood, yeah, he went through some dark stuff, orphaned, and he was molested and beaten, and he liked that in the end. So that might have been what started it. But in this case, with the Marquis de Sade, there isn't really, you can't really put your finger on it. And I think that is truly the fascination. What fascinates me, right? And again, another example, another character of sinister overtones is, let me see if I can pronounce it, Gael del Rey. If you've heard about him, or if you've done some research about this guy, Gael del Rey, another another guy that was into torture, right, in the age of Joan of Arc, um, right? It's just, listen, when it comes to these 120 Days of Sodom, listen, this is a book that I do not recommend to anyone. And this is a first on this channel, I think. This might be a first. Actually, I'm pretty certain that this is a first on this channel, because I believe that pretty much every book deserves a second chance. Every book should be read, because I'm an author myself and I understand what hard work it is to write a book. But in this case, ladies and gentlemen, readers of all ages, this is not a book that I recommend to anybody. I do not recommend this book to anybody. It's a waste of time. It's cringe. It's pathetic. Right? It's boring. It's repetitious. It's not sexy. And I think this is the key. Because if there were certain elements of sexiness in here, rare, but still present, this book might have been enjoyable in a limited way. But there's nothing here but this absolute depravity and degeneracy and creepiness and perverseness that just leaves me cold. Because this is what the vibe that I'm getting. To me, it seems like the Marquis de Sade is this little boy that's trying to impress you with, see how nasty I am while jerking off. See, I'm into doo-doo feces, bro. You're not like me, bro. I'm on another level, bro. Right? I love stinky armpits, bro. Yeah. Aren't you disgusted, bro? Right? It's this, like, the real perversity is that he probably got off from sickening others with his stupid hijinks. Like, yeah, bro, I love to sniff dirty toes. And I'm just like, you do, huh? Cool story, bro. Move along. Move along, bro. This is what I would have told this guy. Like, move along, bro. Talk to somebody else. Yeah, you like doodle feces, huh? Good on you. Stay away from me, okay? Or you're gonna get one of these, right? One of these. This is not a book. Like, if you are into, I don't know, if you want to understand, I don't know, is this pathological? Is this genetical? Is this learned somehow? Is this sparked by something? If you enjoy this type of research into criminality or the sick darkness of the human mind, then yeah, I guess this is the only reason why you should read books like this, you know? This is why I study people like Albert Fish, because I'm still, even to this day, amazed at the limitless, darkness of the human mind, And probably all of this with the Marquis de Sade started because he was bored as fuck from being a rich boy. Probably, who knows? I wouldn't, it would be a possibility that boredom might lead somebody to be this way. But even then, if you are in the pursuit of newer kinks, newer heights when it comes to gratification, I'm still the type of guy that sits like this and all, and I'm wondering, okay, I see you. You're trying to push the envelope. You're trying to cross the Rubicon, but doo-doo feces, though. Like, doo-doo feces. Are you sure about that, brother? I don't, huh? Like, you're into farts. I don't understand. Huh? Like, why? What's wrong with you? Of course, in conclusion, our friend, the Marquis de Sade, absolutely deserves the famous classification that boy just ain't right. Okay? The Marquis de Sade, that boy just ain't right. Okay? Um, you know, I will never touch this book again. There was just so hype. The time has come, friendly reader, for you to prepare your heart and mind for the most impure tale ever written since the world began. And I'm like, why you capping, bro? Why you capping? This is all about doo-doo feces and torture. Stop. Stop it, bro. Mostly about doo-doo feces, though. And this is, I wouldn't call it a cliche necessarily or a stereotype, but in this book, this is how it happens. So somebody tells a story about, some sick stuff. Like somebody says, listen, like the prostitute. She says, listen, there was this guy once, this client, and he was into vomit. Like he got hard from, drinking or eating somebody else's hot, warm vomit. So this is what I did. I ate a lot of food and I drank a purgative and then I puked into my client's mouth while I jerked him off, and he was just a happy camper. And this is what happens when somebody says a sick story like this. One of our four libertines, stands up and says, "Oh, he was into vomit, eh? Eh? Well, he was a cultured fellow. And guess what? I am also into vomit. Yes, this is what I am into, and you are hearing this for the first time, but yes, this is my proclamation. I'm into vomit. And by the way, this story, this story got me pretty hot and bothered. This story about vomit got me hot and bothered. So guess what, folks? Dearly beloved, we're gonna engage in some vomit today. Yay! This is what happens in this book. And then somebody else says, listen, this one time, this guy, he was into earwax. Okay? This guy was into earwax, so for a year, I didn't clean my ears, and then he came, and then he licked all of my earwax with his tongue in my fucking ear, and let me tell you, my hearing has improved dramatically. And again, one of our four libertines stands up and he says, earwax, you say? Well, that's the height of excellence. That boy was refined. And guess what, folks? Not only am I into earwax myself, but all of us will partake in earwax today. And I'm just like, wow. Talk about mundane, banal stuff. And on it goes. Right? On and on it goes. Oh, you're into diarrhea, huh? Well, you are truly cultured, my fellow libertine. And guess what? All of a sudden, I'm into diarrhea. And guess what? All of us today shall partake in an orgy of volcanic diarrhea. Chili is on me. Okay? So, somebody tells or recounts a nasty ass episode with a nasty ass pervert, and these clients, they are usually into, doo-doo feces, farts, strangulation, or some sort of sadomasochistic stuff. They love snot, they love saliva, they just want to smell our armpits. And one of our four libertines stands up, oh, really? He was into inflation, huh? He was into fisting, huh? Well, guess what? So am I. Somebody has to fist me now because that is refined and I am cultured, don't you know? And I'm just like, right? This is the effect of this book. While you're reading it, you're just like, Oh, brother, this guy stinks. It's just like the cringe is overwhelming. You're just like, yeah, right? And of course, it's just, it's all about, I love the hypocrisy in this book, because, the Marquis de Sade was all against religion, and our four libertines are against religion, and they punish those who are religious. And I'm just like, yeah, sure, religion, pretty much is for dumb people, but what you people do, you're like in love with doo-doo feces, bruh. So how can you like criticize religion when you're into doo-doo feces? Even religion has some sort of imagination to it, some spark, some sort of alluring ambiance. You're just into doo-doo feces, my guy. Like you see this? I'm gonna elbow you, bro. Like, huh? Oh, that is it. In conclusion, not a book that is worth your time, but if you wanna reacquaint yourself with the sick, limitless depravity of the human mind and the lengths that it can take to satisfy its primitive urges. There is nothing that human beings won't do to satisfy their primitive urges. This is a book for you. Otherwise, like you can just skip this one, bro. You can just skip this one, bro. Like there is way too much. Listen, there's so much doo-doo feces in this that it is akin or likened to fan service in anime or manga. That's how much doo-doo feces, the prevalence of doo-doo feces in this book is out of this world insane. If you enjoy this content, if you wanna support your boy, I got a few books of my own on Amazon. The link will be down below. Thanks for watching, and listen, let's read better books. See ya.